The Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura, California, presents a homily by our minister, the Reverend Dana Warsnop, titled Something New, recorded on Sunday morning, December 6th, 2020.
Good morning, and welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. This is a congregation boldly seeking the new, adjusting to newness from within a living tradition that is organized, primed to grow and change. I am the Reverend Dana Warsnop, and it is my honor to serve this amazing congregation. And there are a whole host of folks who have collaborated to bring this service into being. Here is the lineup of our entire tech team. And today, our director is Brian Fortune, assistant director is Kitty Merrill, our magician is Sue Brinkmeyer, our tech support human is Joe Osborne, and the on-screen people will introduce themselves as we go along. Some people did report last week that there were some glitches with the spotlighting that wasn't quite on the person who was speaking. We believe we've got that fixed. And if you are finding that you're looking at somebody while somebody else is speaking, that's a perfect time to get in touch with Joe Osborne and say, hey, help me out. Just a few announcements. We are, for the next several weeks, having a program fair, and rather than being all in one place with tables where people can explore different aspects of the church, the different programs of the church, we are having a gathering on each Sunday after church. It'll be in this Zoom room at 12:30. Today, Brian Buck will be talking about how the church is organized and how to reach it should ideally run. And if you have any questions about any of how we do things and where you find stuff out like that, come back at 12:30. So go to coffee hour, take some time and eat a little lunch, then come back at 12:30 and join Brian for that. There are also several ways that we're working at keeping connected over the holidays. You may have seen an email about being elfed. We are elfing one another, which means we're trying to surprise each other with a holiday cheer. In this case, it's going to somebody's door, dropping something off, nothing elaborate, but some holiday cheer, ringing the doorbell and trying to get away before people find out who their elf is. We realize that some people have not gotten the email about this. The deadline to sign up is supposed to be today. We're going to extend that a few days. Look for another email or possibly go on Facebook and look in UUCV this week and to see about joining in that fun. We are also collecting cold weather items for the foul weather shelter that'll be in Ventura this week. There's been information about that, and the folks who are organizing that need hundreds of blankets and jackets and socks and mittens and gloves, etc. So take just some moments and arrive here more fully, breathing. Let us turn our hearts toward one another and enter sacred space.
Very pleasant good morning, everybody, wherever you may be. I'm new worship associate Jerry Mendelson, and it's time for Sunday service. We hope that everyone here has a chalice or a candle and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices all together. We begin our service with the poem, "And the People Stayed Home," a poem about hope in coronavirus times by Kitty O'Meara. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows. And the people began to think differently, and the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully. As they healed, come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Bierke, the music director, and I'd like to invite you to join me in singing. Our first hymn is O Life That Maketh All Things New.
My name's Fidelity Balmer, and I'm the Religious Education Coordinator for our congregation. So this week and last week, I was inspired by conversations in our RE parenting group and RE classes around this notion of growth mindset. And if you're not familiar, growth mindset is the idea that our brains do grow and change with practice. So the kids themselves practiced adding the word yet to sentences that start with the phrase, I can't. I can't swim yet. I can't draw yet. The word yet here, to me, changes the game completely. It invokes a future world, one in which effort and flexibility of thinking can bring about the newness of creation. So today's story truly embodies yet. It's about a girl named Vashti who, alongside the help of a mentor, finds the courage to pursue her own creative spirit and work out something new, even when it feels like the absolute last thing she's capable of doing. For our time for the child in each of us this morning, please enjoy The Dot, written by Peter H. Reynolds. Art class was over, but Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. Vashti's teacher leaned over the blank paper. Ah, a polar bear in a snowstorm, she said. Very funny, said Vashti. I just can't draw. Her teacher smiled. Just make a mark and see where it takes you. Vashti grabbed a marker and gave the paper a good, strong jab. There. Her teacher picked up the paper and studied it carefully. She pushed the paper toward Vashti and quietly said, "Now sign it." Vashti thought for a moment. Well, maybe I can't draw, but I can sign my name. The next week, when Vashti walked into art class, she was surprised to see what was hanging above her teacher's desk. It was the little dot she had drawn, her dot, all framed in swirly gold. I can make a better dot than that. She opened her never-before-used set of watercolors and set to work. Vashti painted and painted. A red dot, a purple dot, a yellow dot, a blue dot. The blue mixed with the yellow, and she discovered that she could make a green dot. Vashti kept experimenting, lots of little dots in many colors. If I can make little dots, I can make big dots too. Vashti splashed her colors with a bigger brush on bigger paper to make bigger dots. Vashti even made a dot by not painting a dot. At the school art show a few weeks later, Vashti's many dots made quite a splash. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle, and then she said, "Please, sign it." So I have to be honest, I'm relating to Vashti a lot these days, frustrated and upset with just how difficult it can be to conjure up a creative thought or idea when it seems like my brain has melted away into a pandemic mode mush. I too sometimes feel like jabbing a marker onto a piece of paper, or in my case this week, scramble typing out some academic nonsense during college finals week, and saying, "There, here it is this what we're looking for?" And yet, sometimes it is what we're looking for. Like Vashti's beautiful dots, we see that sometimes our creations, brought into this world, even in the midst of our frustration and fear and a global pandemic, do and can and will inspire new, beautiful watercolor life.
Yet. The holy yet. Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to an organization in our larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. We now invite you to donate online, and you will see the link on the next slide and posted also in the chat. Today, our offering goes to Step Up Ventura, which helps homeless children under the age of 5 adjust to school and life. And here's a story about their work. Elijah was struggling in school. He lashed out at the other kids and refused to follow directions. And then he got suspended for hurting another classmate. And that's when he was referred to Step Up Ventura. And when the Step Up Ventura worker met with Elijah, he was pleasant, attentive, and very cooperative. But another side started to emerge. He said he didn't have any friends, and he felt lonely when he watched the other kids play together. He wanted friends, but sometimes he just got really mad and he couldn't hang on. He couldn't control that anger. He also said that life at home was changing all the time, and he was never sure what would happen next. So Step Up Ventura is helping Elijah express his feelings safely and respectfully. And he is beginning to share his toys and take turns and make friends. And these new skills that he's developing are making it easier for his teacher to help him manage the demands of being with other kids in a classroom. Elijah will need more support to overcome a traumatic beginning, and Step Up Ventura will be there to help him continue to connect, heal, and to learn. Thank you for giving generously as you always do.
Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark.
We are grateful for the generosity of this congregation. Your generous spirit is a bright thread woven throughout this tapestry of love we call community.
Each week we lift up the joys and sorrows that have been shared with our community. You can submit your joy or sorrow to be shared in one of two ways. Every Thursday, the email bulletin UUCV this week includes a link for sharing joys and sorrows. Or on our church website, you can use the drop-down menu under Sunday Services to find a link for joys and sorrows. When we are together in our physical sanctuary, we drop stones in water for each joy or sorrow. The ripples that go out remind us that we are all connected. I invite you now to speak aloud or in your heart the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those who may need the loving embrace of this community. By invoking their names, even when we may not hear them, you bring them into this circle of caring that we call community. We hold these names, spoken and unspoken, in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
I invite you to join me in singing the tender hymn, Dark of Winter. Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will.
weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Gentle dark, when my fears rise, let your peace flow through me.
Our reading this morning is from When the Going Gets Tough by Katrina Kennison. It will be read in two voices. When the going gets tough, may I resist my first impulses to wade in, fix, explain, resolve, and restore. May I sit down instead. When the going gets tough, may I be quiet. May I steep for a while in stillness.
When the going gets tough, may I have faith that things are unfolding as they are meant to. May I remember that my life is what it is, not what I ask for. May I find the strength to bear it, the grace to accept it, the faith to embrace it.
When the going gets tough, may I practice with what I'm given rather than wish for something else. When the going gets tough, may I assume nothing. May I not take it personally. May I opt for trust over doubt, compassion over suspicion, vulnerability over vengeance. When the going gets tough, may I open my heart before I open my mouth.
When the going gets tough, may I be the first to apologize. May I leave it at that. May I bend with all my being toward forgiveness. When the going gets tough, may I look for a door to step through rather than a wall to hide behind. When the going gets tough, may I turn my gaze up to the sky above my head rather than down to the mess at my feet. May I count my blessings.
When the going gets tough, may I pause, reach out a hand, and make the way easier for someone else. When the going gets tough, may I remember that I'm not alone. May I be kind. When the going gets tough, may I choose love over fear every time.
I invite you now into a time of stillness. For a few moments, be with your breath and feel it move in and through you, then back out into the world. Feel the chair, the floor, the ground beneath you, the sturdiness of earth itself cradling your precious lives, even when, perhaps especially when, the going is tough. Notice the love that lies at the center of your being and offer it up to the world. A silent meditation.
of all mankind. Bid all our sad divisions cease, and be yourself our King of peace. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel.
Thank you. That is one of my very favorite hymns of all time. And we only get to sing it during this time of year. So it's such a haunting tune and so lovely. So thank you, Carolyn and Imani. So every year, the editors of the Oxford English Dictionary pick a word or maybe a phrase of the year, a word that captures the zeitgeist of the past 12 months, a phrase that evokes somehow what it's been like to be alive on the planet during this orbit round the sun. Are you surprised to hear that they couldn't pick just one for 2020? No, they have given us dozens, precisely 47. Among them, words of the year are bushfire and impeachment. Remember way back when, BC, when that was news? BC? Before COVID, of course. Another new term in 2020, or perhaps more accurately, a new usage of an old term. Here is a sampling of more, all worked into a word cloud in the shape of a butterfly. Look for these words as I say them. In the arena of the pandemic, coronavirus, social distancing, flatten the curve, PPE, essential workers, anti-masker, super spreader. In the area of technology, Zoom, unmute, Zoom bombing, and doom scrolling. That's when you scroll through social media just looking for the next piece of bad news. In the arena of politics and society, Black Lives Matter. Defund. Take a knee. Vote by mail. QAnon. Remotely, as in working, and Blur's Day, as in what the heck day is it? It's all a blur now that I'm working remotely from home. I love how flexible human language is. How humans keep coming up with new words and new meanings for old words. It's all because of the 86 billion neurons in our brains and the 500 trillion or more synapses connecting all those neurons. Linguists are pretty sure at this point that language was first invented by children. Our minds are the most flexible and pliable when we are young. A 3-year-old may have a quadrillion synapses, all at work trying to figure out what the heck is going on out there because everything is so new, taking so much in. And this does make children's brains especially creative. And they do things like make up games, and they need to communicate about the rules and the process on the games that they invent. So they create words and signs that have meaning. Take the children of this first school for the deaf in Nicaragua. After the revolution in the 70s, the new Nicaraguan government focused on education and literacy. And the first school for the deaf was founded, the first ever in the country. And deaf children from all over the country came to learn. Yet there was no Nicaraguan sign language. And the kids were actually encouraged to not use any gestures, but to lip read. But that didn't do them any good on the playground. And since there was no Nicaraguan sign language, the kids invented one. And then they taught it to the younger kids. The teachers couldn't understand what the heck they were saying, so they brought in an American linguist who realized she was watching a new language being born. New things are always arising. We have entered Advent, which is my favorite season on the Christian calendar. Advent is a time of waiting, specifically the time that Mary was waiting for her baby to be born. And yet, metaphorically, it is a season of waiting as we approach solstice and, yes, Christmas and the new year. It is a time of gestation. What new thing will be born in us, in the world? This time invites reflection in the darkest time of the year, at least for people in the Northern Hemisphere. And it invites us in to rest, sitting in the dark, waiting, hibernating, gestating. What new thing will be born? It is also about anticipation. Our kids know well the anticipation of Christmas morning, yet we can all anticipate what will arise newly as the solstice turns us back toward light, back towards springtime. What will arise in a new year as we say goodbye to 2020? Good riddance, any number of us might well say. The election is behind us, yet a long COVID winter still lies ahead. It will ask more of us before it passes. Which is why it is a very good thing that our human brains are very good at making connections, of bringing forth new ideas, new ways of being. The deaf children in Nicaragua invented their own language because they needed it and because they could. And this new language has kept changing with each new generation who learns it. Signs are less broad and distinct. They're getting easier about it, probably creating slang. And what do the first generations of signers say about those changes? Those new kids are being so messy and sloppy. They are clearly ruining the language. Does that sound at all familiar? As we get older, our brains do begin to lose some flexibility, what is also called neuroplasticity. And we can have a harder time incorporating the new. But all is not lost. As our first hymn told us, the soul is perennially young, the soul's perennial youth, and that may be part of our saving. All is not lost because our brains still learn and grow all the way through our lives, especially when we encounter new circumstances. Say like a global pandemic that upends almost everything. Yep, it's been painful, but our brains are becoming more flexible. These times may just kickstart the neuroplasticity we need for the innovations we will need to address so many problems. How many of you had Zoomed even 10 months ago? Now your brain, because it has Zoomed and learned the language of Zoom, you've learned to unmute when you need to. Now your brain has created whole new sets of synapses. Stanford neuroscientist David Engelman offers a hopeful perspective. He says, every moment of your life, your brain is rewiring. Our brains have vast seas of connections that are constantly changing their strength. They're unconnecting here and reconnecting someplace else. It's why you are a slightly different person than you were a week ago or a year ago. He goes on. COVID time is when everyone has lots of changes going on all the time. We suddenly find ourselves kicked off the hamster wheel and we have to rethink things and be creative. The only silver lining to the lockdown is the fact that we're getting a lot of brain plasticity out of it. For those who haven't caught the illness, it's a sort of beneficial COVID brain. We get to challenge ourselves with novelty, which is the most important thing for the brain. There are lots of reasons that the world's scientists are creating vaccines for COVID-19 at record speed. We've sequenced the human genome already, which just eases it along. And there are so many new things in place for us to use, for our scientists to use. And a new reality has sparked innovation. Humans will continue to innovate and create. Someone put a monolith reminiscent of 2001: A Space Odyssey out in the Utah desert. Almost as soon as it was discovered, it disappeared. And now another monolith, perhaps the same one, has appeared nearer to us in Atascadero. It's not it's not an innovation quite on the scale of vaccines for COVID, and yet it is an utter delight. We need art, beauty, and a little whimsy in life too, especially because these times are so challenging and often painful for us, all this newness. And Advent, which we are entering now, is a time of year set aside for anticipating new things being born into the world. This will be a holiday season unlike anything we have known before. What is it that you are anticipating in the new year? The earth keeps turning. It keeps orbiting the sun. New things arise, which among other things enhances the neuroplasticity and synapses between our 86 billion or so neurons. Yet we need far more than technical innovations to get through COVID time. To strengthen democracy, to address climate change, to dismantle systemic racism. May this time give us too the neuroplasticity to change the way we live, the way we think, the stories that we tell about how the world works. For when people think differently, we are also healed. May this time give us the neuroplasticity and the comfort with newness to really change. What if we did use this time to change, say, our national ethos from the sense of individualism to a sense of the importance of the collective? Epidemiologist Jonathan Smith says, unlike personal practices like hand washing, social distancing measures are not about individuals. They are about societies working in unison. And until we get a viable vaccine, this unprecedented outbreak will not be overcome in one grand sweeping gesture, rather only by the collection of individual choices our community makes. Individual choices that we make together. It will be, he warns, easy to be drawn into the idea that what we are doing isn't working, and we can easily become paralyzed by fear or just cheat a little bit in the coming weeks because it doesn't seem to be making a difference. But rather what we need is patience and perseverance and a community spirit and community-wide strategies. That is for our culture and for much of our lives, a whole new way of thinking. It requires a whole new vocabulary. It is so that new vocabulary is harder for an older brain to learn to use. And yet, how many of these new terms and new meanings for older terms do you now know? Our brains are more plastic and flexible. We've had to stretch these last months, and it's not always particularly comfortable. I know. And yet another new narrative. I'm not good at this Zoom thing yet. May we all learn to employ the holy yet. Our brains, given these last 10 months, our brains are primed for newness. We can make new connections. We can seek to understand things differently. We can tell a different story about who we are, how the world can be. The arc of such newness is long. At some point, actually remarkably soon, a vaccine will be available. Yet the societal changes that are possible, that we need, will take longer and won't be quite so clear. Yet may we all keep looking for them. May we take time during Advent season, the season of anticipation. May we be willing to change, find some joy and delight in the change. Learn to play again, to learn newly and change our lives. Remember, your brain is primed for it. Amen. And may it be so. I invite you now into a time of prayer. Spark of creation, light of innovation, spirit of delight, mystery and miracle beyond naming, which dwells within and among and beyond us this day and always. May we embrace the new. May we embrace a life force that maketh all things new. May we embrace the holy yet, knowing there is yet so much more to learn, so much more possibility yet to discover, so many new stories yet to tell. And may we see the power of the community, the power of a collective will. May we live into that so that we may think differently and the world may be healed of all that needs healing. And may all those who are ill find healing. May those who are in despair find hope. May those who are without shelter find home. And may all those suffering in conflict and war throughout the world, may we know peace. Amen, and blessed be.
Please join me in our closing hymn, Building a New Way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our
Please join Reverend Dana in extinguishing your chalice at home. We extinguish the chalice, but not the light in our hearts, the warmth of community, or the assurance and goodness that we have found here. Those we carry into our lives until we gather again.
In a moment, you will be placed into breakout rooms for a virtual coffee hour. And even if you are new to us, perhaps especially if you are new with us, I do sincerely invite you to join in. You can join your group or opt out at this point. And if you want to continue chatting after your first group is done, just return to the main room and ask to be put into a new breakout room. I leave you with these words adapted from Francisco Alarcón. May our ears hear what nobody wants to hear. May our eyes see what everyone wants to hide. May our mouths speak our true faces and hearts. May our arms be branches that give shade and joy. Let us be the key, the hand, the door. Let us arrive as children to this huge playground, the universe. Go forth in peace. Go forth in good health. Go forth in love. May it be so.
We hope you've enjoyed Something New, presented by the Reverend Dana Warsnop, recorded on December 6th, 2020, for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura, California.